I keep seeing other creators asking, why is it that Democrats are still playing by the rules when nobody else is? First off, they've been playing a game of checkers against opponents who are actually playing chess, and they've been completely oblivious to that fact, but even more oblivious to the fact that, Republicans flipped over the chessboard entirely back in January, or we could even take it further back than that. They did it back when Project 2025 was crafted, or back when the Heritage Foundation started fucking with this country decades ago, or back to the moral majority, right? Heck, take it back even further, the John Birch Society. Conservatives, the alt-right, MAGA, whatever you want to call them, they have not been playing by the rules for a very, very long time. And it's just really overt right now, right? It's really, really obvious to everybody. And yet, for some reason, Democrats still feel like they are going to win the moral high ground by playing meek and mild, sticking to etiquette and procedure. It's like they're looking at all of this Victorian cutlery in front of them and being like, oh, I'm going to use my soup spoon for the consomme. And meanwhile, like, Republicans have picked up the steak knife and the salad fork and are stabbing them in the back. Oh, and also that bowl of broth has been poisoned, but Democrats are going to go ahead and drink it anyway, being sure to have good manners and spoon the soup away from them while they do it. So, we are now seeing Republicans are attempting to gerrymander again in Texas, because Republicans can only win if they cheat, right? I think more and more people on the left are coming to realize, especially if they're from blue states, privileged blue states, they're realizing that there really are not red and blue states in this country. There are gerrymandered purple states, right? There are states where white people get power and make sure that they set up the districts in their state so that minority groups are disenfranchised and do not have representation in Congress. And now we are seeing Trump, who is freaking out so bad about the midterms. He and the Republicans all see how devastating the midterms are going to be, that people are really fucking riled up, and that it's going to be potentially a bloodbath for Republicans. And so there was some reporting out this past week that Trump, was leaning on Republicans in Texas in particular to redistrict and try to cut away, I think it's 4 districts that are all held by, guess what, representatives who are not white. Because the only way they can win is if they cheat. They don't want a representative democracy. They want an autocracy. They are afraid to let the people be heard. They are afraid to let people be able to cast their votes and to have representatives who work for them in Congress. Because then otherwise they can't maintain white supremacy. So we're watching this unfold in Texas. And real quick, I want to play you a clip of what Texas Representative Jasmine Crockett had to say about this gerrymandering that is about to happen in Texas if it's not stopped.
The gerrymander, can you talk on that? Thank you.
Yeah, so first of all, it hasn't quite been said clearly that Texas has always been found to be intentionally discriminatory. And so I want y'all to understand the makeup of my state. The state is a majority minority state. And what this legislature historically has done is what they plan to do again, is to dilute the voices of people of color in order to make sure that they can get to where they're trying to go. We saw this Department of Justice decided to put out a letter, and what did they do? We only have 4 seats that are represented by Black folk, where the vast majority of the people that get to decide who they have represent them are Black. They decided to attack 3 of the 4 seats that we have in the state. They decided to go after a Latina. They are specifically deciding to splinter the communities of common interest, as well as just blatantly say, we are going to dilute minority voices. So we know that the courts, ever since we've had a Voting Rights Act, have always found this state to be intentionally discriminatory. That is what they are going to do. So I need people of color to understand that the scheme of the Republicans has consistently been to make sure that they mute our voices so that they can go ahead and have an oversized say in this. So I fully anticipate that's exactly where they're going with this map. It's the only way to do it. We didn't understand how we got to the map that they gave us last time, because that state was grown by 95% people of color. They went out of their way to make sure that we got 0 new seats.
I really appreciated Representative Crockett's explanation there of the reality of what it's like in Texas and in many of the other southern states, any of the other red states, where gerrymandering is the status quo. White folks in power are desperately afraid of the voices of minority voters being heard, of minority voters being able to participate in the democratic process. they can only win by cheating, y'all. They can only win by gerrymandering. And that's why the Voting Rights Act is so important and consistently finds these southern states and their mostly white legislatures that they're up to some no good shit. Understand, Texas Governor Greg Abbott called for a special session. And that means that the Texas legislature is limited by the Constitution to, I think it's like 140 days a year in session. Same way, like Oregon only has a part-time legislature. So he had to call for a special session to bring these folks back. And he's doing it because Donald Trump's Department of Justice has requested it. What he said here is that they are going to be drafting legislation in this special session that, quote, provides a revised congressional redistricting plan in light of constitutional concerns raised by the U.S. Department of Justice. Donald Trump himself is so worried about the Republicans in the midterms losing that they have to cheat. He's asking Texas to cheat. I know I've gotten flack from even some of my mutuals for being like, y'all, the issue is not Starlink zapping the votes, right? That's not how the Republicans cheat. There is not some magic like vote switching that is happening on the day of elections. There are age-old, decades-old tactics that Republicans use with a significant amount of success in order to cheat. Gerrymandering is one of them. Voter suppression is another one, and there are myriad ways that Republicans use voter suppression to make sure that the people they don't want voting do not get to participate in democracy. And we could talk about that in another video. This urgent push for Abbott to redistrict Texas is very unusual because Texas typically redraws their districts once every 10 years. The last time they redistricted, they got sued for it, right? 2021, they faced a lawsuit alleging that they had violated the Voting Rights Act. And strangely enough, this lawsuit that is just now coming to trial after 4 years has had one of the plaintiffs step off of it, and that would be the Department of Justice. Donald Trump, Pam Bondi's DOJ, has no interest in upholding the Voting Rights Act and suing to make sure that states enforce it. In fact, we are seeing Trump would like them to continue to engage in voter suppression. He's not interested in fighting it. He wants more of that. So the question then becomes, if Democratic-controlled state legislatures can cheat whenever they want, why are Democratic legislatures around the country still feeling constrained by the rules? Why can't they just redistrict and get rid of a bunch of Republican districts? Like, two can play at this game. That's not my idea. Gavin Newsom actually said that in a recent interview with the Tennessee Holler.
Stand as a democracy in this moment.
Well, I saw what Governor Abbott did today.
Yeah.
Announcing a special session that will include redistricting.
Seizing power even after
These guys aren't, they're not fucking around, man. They're playing by a totally different set of rules. And here I am in California trying to raise the bar of sort of bipartisanship. Years and years ago, we did independent redistricting in a state that I assure you, with 2/3 majorities in the legislature, could gerrymander like no other state. And we've been playing fair. But I saw what he just did today. Made me question that entire program. I mean, these guys are going to do everything in their power to maintain their power. So your question was a specific question. If we don't take back the House of Representatives, I don't want to be alarmist. I don't want to say game over. That will be one of the most profound moments, I think, in modern history of this country.
Gavin Newsom understands the severity of the moment, and I say that as somebody who doesn't particularly like him, but has watched him be politically savvy and understand the urgency of the situation. He knows Republicans are trying really hard to cheat. They're going to try really hard to cheat in the midterms because they know that they cannot win through legitimate means. They know that they do not have the will of the people. They don't have a mandate to govern. And so they have to try to seize power through voter suppression. I actually want to leave you here with a clip from Hakeem Jeffries about this issue. You can see from my face that I'm not cheesed about it, but I'll leave you with this and ask what you think we need to do to help progressive Democrats in the party who understand the assignment be empowered to actually do the work to defend democracy.
Should Democrats not then be willing to play the same rules and have in the states that you do control the legislature and the maps to be attempting the same tactics?
All options will continue to be on the table as it relates to our efforts to push back legislatively and legally in Texas as it relates to this illegal, unconstitutional, and egregious effort to rig the elections and gerrymander the maps in Texas. With respect to what happens in other states, I think that I'll let Governor Gavin Newsom, Governor Hochul, and others continue to speak for themselves on this issue. Stay tuned.
Yeah, okay. Just going to say one more time, I think this is a moment in history when the progressives in the Democratic Party, the fighters in the Democratic Party, need to step up and take over. Our democracy depends on it.